The hell are you guys doing?
Don't open the door!
What did you do to the door?
We didn't do this.
He's trying to come in.
There's nothing out here.
Yes, there is. Greg, are you okay? Greg.
Hey, yo, my friends, we are back. It's been a whole week, and I still can't figure out if Vertebrae33 liked this movie or not. It's Shawn the Butcher here with the man himself, Vertebrae33, for a brand new episode, 28, part 2, wrapping up It Follows. What's up, Vertebrae?
What's happening, Shawn? How you doing?
I'm very good because I can't... I feel like I could read you most of the time, and I can't read through your poker face. However, I've mentioned it many times in the previous episode and right before we started recording, regardless of whether or not you liked or disliked this movie, the universe building that you have done in the previous episode are things that I really didn't even link into. And I'm thinking maybe a lot of the audience didn't either. So I feel like you're opening, it's like Lucy when she started opening up the more pathways in her brain.
Getting higher percentile brain usage going on. I love it. There you go. It's opening it up. But, you know, if I've missed anything or people have, I meant to mention this last time. If you've got theories on It Follows, I would love you to write in and talk about it with us and tell us what you think and tell us if we missed anything or there was a lot more on this film than I thought kind of at first glance. And that was very exciting for me because if you're going to put that much thought into your planning when you film it, then it's just giving you something on the next layer to dive into. I think there's a lot of people. I think this is generally a well-liked film. I kind of online, I noticed that, I don't check scores and stuff, but just seemed like people were, when you look it up, it seems like a lot of people really like it. And I wonder if some of those people like it just on the surface, and then so many people like it because when you sit and it resonates with you, you can take other things away from it as well. But I'll be curious to see. So write in. What's the email address? I always forget it, Shawn.
So this show is all about interaction. This is not just for me and Vertebrae to talk about movies as much as we love to for over the last year and a half and even before that. I'm about 25% of this show. Vertebrae, I'd say, is the other 25% of this show, and definitely the other 50% of this show is the interaction that we have with you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for building this family. If you want to interact, communicate, be part of what is going on, we are on all the socials at In Madness Pod, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Hit us in the mail sack. We will be dipping in there in the next couple of episodes. We have a bunch of emails. Nothing brings me more joy than logging into the In Madness Gmail and seeing like a bunch of emails that aren't just you can have 10% off your car insurance, like actual emails from the In Madness family. If you want to join us, inmadnesspod@gmail.com. We will read your email on the air. Subscribe to our YouTube page. You can watch this on video as well as hear the audio. You could check out the shirts that Vertebrae33 is rocking that we have made available to you, the In Madness shirt. You could check out the cool the mugs and the comic books and all the cool things that we have sometimes on our 0.5 on the YouTube page, In Madness Pod. Give us the 5-star reviews, hit all the likes, check out the In Madness Spotify playlist where you're going to hear Whitney Houston and Elton John and Eminem with Scam. Just so many crazy songs, all about stuff that we have brought up on this podcast. Some songs feature samples from the movies we have discussed on this podcast. Happy In Madness Monday, if that is indeed when you're listening, a brand new episode, regardless of Christmas, regardless of work, regardless of insanity of life. We drop a brand new episode for you every single Monday. So spread the madness worldwide. Tell every single person you know about this show. We want to grow this family. We want everybody in on this discussion. InMadnessPod@gmail.com. And if you want to rock the shirts, if you want to show out for your boys and go out in public and be like, this is my cool In Madness t-shirt, this is my milking of the alpaca shirt, you wouldn't get it, but if you listen to this show, you will get it. InMadness.com. The links to everything I have brought up, the playlist, the YouTube, the audio, no matter where it is, the shirts, it's all available in the description of this episode, no matter where you're listening, no matter where you're watching. Thank you for listening to my spiel at the beginning of these episodes.
Nice. And Shawn, we're getting more and more new listeners on a daily basis. So can you quickly explain to them what the milking of the alpacas moment is?
Yeah, I mean, you started it. We did Color Out of Space. One of my, I think it was our 5th episode. One of my new like favorite movies of all time. And there is a moment in the movie where they're milking Nick Cage's alpacas, or like they're in the middle of doing something that has nothing to do with milking the alpaca. I mean, a meteorite landed in their yard and they're staring at this meteorite, and then they're like, yeah, we got to go milk the alpacas. And then they go milk the alpacas, and it's kind of a shift where everything changes, and every movie has that shift, regardless of it's Fire in the Sky or The Exorcist or Cloverfield or any of the crazy movies we have covered or are about to cover. There's that moment when you're either in or you're out, and you're like, oh my God, there's a crazy lady in the basement, I'm in. Or you're like, oh my God, what I thought was a flying spaceship is actually a big butthole alien. I really don't care that much. Regardless of what that milking of the alpacas moment is for you, every single movie has one. And we highlight it in every episode. Mine for It Follows was very early in episode 1. If you haven't listened, I mean, you should, so you can catch up with what the hell we're about to go over for episode 2. But have you had your milking of the alpacas moment yet for It Follows yet, Vertebrae?
I have not. I'm gonna have one soon. But I started because of that moment, and then we'll jump into the movie. I started following these like alpaca farm places, and I feel like we're getting one step closer to being able to record with some alpacas nearby. I don't want to just go to a random farm and do it. I want to like be like an invited guest because of all the love that we bring to
and actually milk an alpaca. Yeah, we'll do like an alpaca like fundraiser, save the alpacas. I mean, I just love the fact I don't see many shirts with alpacas on them, and now not only do we have one, but that motherfucker is huge. It takes up most of the shirt, and I love having a shirt that says milking of the alpacas, because it's crude and it's rude and it's vile, and it's like, if you don't know what it means, it just hits you in such a weird way. But if you're in on it, you're in on it. And I love a good bit, and I find milking of the alpacas to be such a great one. So thank you for representing. If you've got a shirt, thank you so much. Vertebrae keeps telling me we got another shirt. Somebody bought another shirt. Thank you so much for supporting this. We greatly appreciate it. It means everything to us. We put a lot into these episodes, even when they're quick ones. It takes a lot to do all this. So just the fact you listening and shouting us out on the socials and participating and watching these movies. I mean, it's not just listening to us. It's like watching the movie and then listening to the cool gnarly facts that Vertebrae has about everything. So yes. Is there anything you wanted to get into before I recap what happened in our first episode for It Follows?
No, I'm just excited for the recap. Let's go.
I'm excited for your heel or your face turn that's going to happen with this movie eventually. We got this violent death of this girl to open the movie. Found out her name is Annie, quite like the movie Halloween. Something was following her, no explanation at all. Then we meet our main character, Jay, dating this dude. His name's Hugh, or so he says. She likes Hugh. She sleeps with Hugh, and Hugh does the massive heel turn. Tells Jay he has spread something to her, not an STD, but a lurking death. She's now being followed slowly by anyone or anything. Whatever it is, it's coming to kill her. And if it kills her, then it goes back after Hugh. it has a very organized, detailed system of how it does things. Jay has confided in her sister and friends to help her through this tumultuous situation. Her friends are all sleeping over her house, guarding and protecting her. Something has just broken a window in the house. Paul ran upstairs to wake up Jay's sister. Jay goes to check the broken window, and as the music is crescendoing, getting super tense in slow motion, she looks to her left. And this is where we left you in our previous episode. And there it is. A topless woman, one sock on, one off, slowly approaching, pissing herself in the process. Jay screams, runs upstairs. She locks the door. Her sister and Paul knock on the door, asking if she's okay. She tells them it's in the house. They tell her there's nothing out there. She opens the door and lets them in, and she is freaking out. She can't figure out what's wrong with her. She tells him about the girl she just saw in the kitchen. Her sister tells her it's okay. Jay's like, you don't believe me. There's a knock at the door. Mom, they ask, but no answer. Paul picks up a broom, ready to strike. The doorknob is slowly moving, but it's Yara, their other friend. Jay insists, don't open the door, but they do, and there's Yara. However, from behind her, this enormous dude walks out of the dark right behind her and makes his way right into Jay's room towards Jay. She screams, freaks out, and bails out the window.
And this, my friends, is my milking of the alpacas. That giant man who comes through that doorway totally, completely freaked me out when I first saw this, because we've had three entity sightings so far, all three women, and none of them gigantic. This guy's gigantic and just coming at you. So boy, yeah, this part really freaked me out. I wonder too, Shawn, who are these people and how do they relate to the characters that they're chasing? Like, how do they relate to her? We get one later on that I think is somebody in her life, but yeah, this is my moment here. This was pretty freaky.
That's great. I love it. I love it. The neighbor Greg is outside smoking a doob in his car. He sees Jay get on a bike and ride away. She goes to the park. She sits on a swing, looks off in the distance. Everywhere, mass paranoia. She's waiting for something to begin approaching, and sure as hell, in the darkness of the trees, figures are moving. But it's just Paul and her sister. She tells him she's scared. Jay insists they not tell mom. Then we see someone approaching. Jay stops and asks her sister, do you see that? She says, yes, it's Greg, the neighbor. Jay says she doesn't want to go home. She has to find Hugh. The neighbor offers to drive, and then goes to get his car. They're cruising the streets. They get to Hugh's old place. It's abandoned. They go inside. There's newspaper on the windows. There's little traps set up all around the windows with bottles hanging from strings. So it makes noise if anyone comes through the window. There's a bunch of pills in a cabinet, I guess, to help stay awake and for anxiety and whatnot, which has a very Friday the 13th nightmare, very Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy vibe to it.
Right. Yeah, and the traps is interesting too. The stuff on the wall, not the traps, but the kind of things to make a noise. So if you're sleeping and it comes in, that's the thing too. I wonder, can it just approach you when you're sleeping? Do you have to be awake? Because could end this all very quickly if it just moved like a touch quicker and attacked people when they were asleep. It would be over. But
I think it does come after you when you're asleep.
Like sound asleep. So how does this chain continue then? It's not going to find you when you're all wrapped up in your blanket, Shawn.
That's the thing. It could, and I could wake up right as it's like right, and I'd have to like run away as far as I can. And if I get far, that's what he said. He says it soon. Get far away and far enough away from it where you can, reconfigure your thoughts.
I don't know. If I was one of these entities, I think I'd just wait outside the house. They're going to be back. Just wait by the
bathroom. Wait for me by the bathroom because I'm going to wake up and piss in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I'm just waiting right here. I'm not. Why am I running all over the place in a nightgown? I'm gonna just wait right here.
My 3 a.m. piss tonight is going to be horrifying. I'm going to be like,
Yeah, sorry.
The kids check the rest of the house. Paul heads up to the spank room. He finds a mattress on the floor with old porno mags laying around. And just for some added realism, there's many wadded up, crumpled tissues, not only on the magazines, but peppered throughout the rest of the floor as well. And Paul just gently brushes them off and picks up one of these sticky magazines.
Disgusting. In a movie that has some bad decisions coming up very soon, this is probably the worst decision of all. Why would you? I have in my notes, why would Paul touch those magazines with like a million exclamation points after it? That was not something I needed to watch the movie again to notice. It was right away. And I know they told the story about the old porno mags that they found and all that kind of stuff. And this ties into that. But come on, man. Sitting on that nasty mattress and then just brushing those tissues away to read those like, no way. But his little detective move here gets him somewhere.
Jay walks in and sees Paul, walks past him to the window. She looks out and sees someone and she backs off into panic. Paul finds a picture in one of the porno magazines. It's a picture of Hugh and some chick in a jacket from Lawson High School. Paul says someone has to know his real name.
Mm-hmm.
Jay and the neighbor kid head to the school. There's this creepy music playing and this cool, like, double 360 shot that gets done of the kids walking. Everyone on the school grounds is walking around. And in one shot, there's one person walking directly to the camera. But you can't tell. Is it a person? It follows? You don't know. Jay and the neighbor approach someone and appear to be looking at a yearbook, trying to find out Hugh's real name as the camera again slowly and creepily zooms in on them. Super tense.
And you know how we said in the first episode, we're not sure when this movie is set because the technology is all over the place. Also, the ability to just stroll into this. I guess he's in high school. They're in college, right? I think they're in college. That's a literature class. I don't know, high school, college. I'm not really sure. But they're not in school at this present time if they're in high school. So high school students from another school when they're supposed to be in school just wander to this one and get information from a woman with a red sweater on, by the way. And you know, this part's all very weird. You don't even see her face. You just see kind of like the back of her head. They do that a lot with the adult characters. It's very like was it like a Charlie Brown teacher kind of thing?
Yeah.
Right. It's very weird too. The lady that is looking at the yearbook, she has a whole stack of these books, and then she slowly, when they walk away, she's still staring at it, and she closes it slowly and puts it on the stack of the other books. It's very methodical the way she does it. I have to think that all of this weirdness is on purpose because none of it makes any logistical sense. We're headed down a path now where none of this is really going to make any sense. These kids are just off running around with no parental supervision, going wherever they want. We are headed into full Scooby-Doo territory with this film right now. We're right there. Complete with a very poor plan later on, you know.
They head back to the car. They tell the kids his real name is Jeff Redmond. Her sister wants to go to the cops, but Jay doesn't. The neighbor puts his arm around Jay to comfort her, and Paul from the back seat sees this, and you can see the utter disappointment on his face. Poor
and Shawn,
guy.
What was his last name?
Jeff Redmond.
Oh, Redmond. We're back with the color red again.
You're very good at this.
Yeah, none of it's an accident.
Jay approaches a house and a woman opens the door. It's Jeff's mom. Jay asks if Jeff's home. She says yes and goes to get him. Cut to all the kids sitting on the front lawn in a circle. Jeff is describing what's happening to Jay. He tells her even though it's following her, he can still see it. It's not done with me either. He says, all I can do is pass it along to someone else. Her sister's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He tells her to do the same thing he did. Do the same thing he did. It should be easy for her. She's a girl. He tells her any guy would be with her. Just sleep with someone else and tell them to do the same thing. Maybe it'll never come back.
And wait, so he's outside of his house in like some pajamas or something, and is he supposed to be at school? Because they're in the middle of the day. He's not at school. I don't know what he's doing. He's just hanging out with these random kids drinking soda. And then if you notice Jay, when they're talking, she starts to pluck little pieces of grass and line them up on her leg. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's the same thing as when she's looking down at the tattoo. Are they tally marks? Is it alluding to something else? It's a really, are you just stressed out and organizing these blades of grass, kind of calm you down? It's an interesting move.
You know damn well what this kid was doing on a school day in his pajamas at home. You saw his room in the other house. He was 100% in his room in the middle of a good JO session watching Pornhub, and then gets a knock on his door from mom, worst scenario ever. And it's like, you got friends outside who are here to see you, and you're like, this could not be worst timing ever. So that's 100% what I think he was doing.
Yeah, we never know. We got their general age group, but we really don't have, all of it down yet. And we do get, we kind of get our Scooby-Doo gang here too. But like, if you could kind of parcel it out and see who's who.
Greg, the neighbor, doesn't believe it. Says it's some fucked up game. Jeff tells him he's not safe either. He says they shouldn't be in the same place. Tells them if it kills her, then it gets him, and goes straight down the line to whoever started it. He apologizes to Jay. He tells her he wasn't trying to hurt her. Someone did this same thing to him, but she's in her own world. She's stacking grass blades on her leg. She asks who did it to him. He says he met a girl at a bar. It was a one-night stand. He thinks that's where it came from. Greg, the neighbor, starts getting pissed, calls him a liar. that she might believe him, but he doesn't, and what he's doing to Jay is fucked up. But Jay, we see behind Jay, we see a girl approaching, and Jeff is freaking out. He asks, panicked, "Did you see that girl right there?" And everyone looks and is like, "Yeah." He says, "Wherever you are, it's somewhere walking straight for you, but it is walking. If you drive far enough, you can buy yourself some time to think, decide if you want to give it to someone else." Cut to the kids driving. Jay's sister asks Greg, the neighbor, if his mom's going to freak out. He says she won't even notice. He says his dad used to take him hunting a couple of times a year. He says it's not that nice, but it's pretty cool. Jay's sister asks if she thought about what Jeff said, and slowly Paul starts lifting up his head. Her sister asks about passing it on. Jay says she doesn't know, and again, Paul looks super disappointed. Cut to the kids. They arrive at this super nice house mansion on the water, but I thought this asshole Greg said it was just okay. This fucking guy.
Yeah, well, and you too, when they're driving there, Shawn, there's leaves everywhere now. We get tons of leaves on the ground, so we're back to kind of it being fall, and we're right by, I guess that's the ocean or a lake. I'm not really sure.
It's a massive mansion on the water, and it kind of looks like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. But if like Texas Chainsaw if Leatherface was like the CEO of a company.
Yeah, it's a really nice place. There's nothing, yeah.
We cut to Paul, and he's thinking about one thing and one thing only, getting that sweet poontang. Life or death, he does not care. He is staring at Jay while she's asleep. Greg, the neighbor, goes out to this shack inside a little box and pulls out a gun. We cut to him teaching Jay how to shoot it, with the rest of the kids nearby covering their ears. Kids are sitting on a beach. It's Paul, Jay, her sister, Greg, the neighbor, and behind Jay, someone's walking around. It looks like Yara. All good, no problems. Neighbor goes to take a leak, and the camera's on Paul. And floating in the water on a tube is Yara. Bum, bum, bum. The camera cuts to Jay, and something menacing that looks sort of like Yara is approaching Jay as the music begins to build. Her sister's looking at her and watches, and even though there's nothing behind her, Jay's hair gets pulled up like something's there, and the shit hits the fan. Vertebrae's favorite daytime horror.
Except this part, this was kind of the least scary part of the movie for me, because the hair goes up like very, like in those old black and white, like in Three Stooges or something, somebody gets scared and the hair goes up straight. This is where it starts to get very weird. What freaks me out about this scene is not the hair, it's before, when it's Yara, but Yara's in the water. That part totally freaks me out. This part next here once you finish talking about it, I got a lot of questions.
It's very Scooby-Doo. Jay jumps up and begins screaming. Jay can see it, but to these other kids, it's invisible, like Predator. Paul picks up a chair and whacks this thing while it's in midair. It hits it, and we see him get launched backward. The girls run to the shed. Paul runs after them. We see this figure still slowly following Jay. She grabs the gun, aims it out the door at the figure approaching, and begins firing. As Greg, the neighbor, runs up, the shots start going off, so he hides behind a chair. Jay is shooting, and you're thinking these bullets are going right through it, or she's a terrible shot. But then she hits it in the neck, and it falls to the floor. The neighbor screams, "Stop shooting!" Then slowly the figure on the floor, like a zombie, gets up again and continues following. Jay closes and locks the door, and from outside we see the big giant dude that scared the shit out of us earlier, who was at her house, slowly creep by a window. Jay is freaking out when all of a sudden a hole gets blasted through the lower half of the door, but nothing is there.
And this is the part, like these parts here, like really, really confuse me. So they can physically interact with the environment, even though nobody else can see them. Although it physically interacts with Paul by throwing him like 100 feet away with like superpowers, but Paul can't see them. So it's weird, because if it's physically interacting with the environment, when the old maid is walking across the grass, is she making impressions in the grass as she walks by people? And they're like, hey, that looks like ghost footprints. But we can interact. The rules start to go off the rails a little bit with this. But Shawn, I'll make my first and only Star Wars reference in this, right? I'm gonna squeeze it in. But when Obi-Wan Kenobi, and spoiler alert for a movie if you haven't seen it, like 40 something years ago, but when Obi-Wan Kenobi first becomes one with the Force, he only appears as a voice to Luke. And then eventually he appears, as a Force ghost, and he can interact with the environment. He sits on a log and talks to him on Dagobah and everything. And then he's able to kind of fight. It seems like these Force ghosts get like more powers as it goes along. So maybe that's kind of almost what's happening in this movie. We didn't see the yellow dress girl at all as a viewer. Then we didn't see the one that killed Annie. We didn't see the girl. And then we start to see them. And now we're seeing them interact with other people and finally interact with the environment. So it's just kind of increasing as it goes along.
In the big open hole in the door, we see Greg, the neighbor. He's like, what the hell is going on? They're screaming, don't open the door. It's trying to get in. The kid insists there is nothing here. He gets up and runs off. Jay's calling for him. Are you there? Are you okay? And as she's slowly creeping up to the hole in the door, God damn it, this little wormy looking kid with no eyeballs in his socket sticks his face in and begins creepily crawling through the hole in the door. Jay is freaking out, but no one can see it except her. She runs out the back door of the shed as another figure follows her right out the back door. Jay runs to the car as this figure is following her. She puts it in reverse and hauls ass out of there. The kids are chasing behind, and so is the figure we see behind them, but the kids don't. Jay is flying down down the road, escaping till a car backs out of a driveway, causing her to swerve, hit some mailboxes, and crash into a cornfield.
And when she takes off, there's like a red boat in the distance in the water too. So you kind of get that little bit of clue. It's on the left-hand side.
Red. The theme is red.
Yes.
That was like Ex Machina, right?
Uh-huh.
Check
Yeah,
out
well,
our
they played with a lot of color themes in that too, but this one is kind of just red has always been sort of a foreboding color in a lot of paintings and stuff too, but they do it. And when this car pulls away, what a cool shot of them running behind it and the camera tracking that way. That's a really neat shot.
She wakes up in the hospital. She's got a bruise on her head. Her arm is broken. Her sister and friends are next to her asleep. She looks out the door and we hear footsteps approaching. Jay begins to freak out, but it's a nurse. Jay stares at Greg, the neighbor, who's asleep in his chair. He opens his eyes and he stares back at her. Cut to Jay and Greg, the neighbor, getting it on right there in the hospital bed, banging away. He's taking one for the team. He's stoked about it. She seems pretty impartial about the whole thing, but now
Yeah.
he's cursed and followed.
And this hospital gives me very heavy Halloween 2 vibes. There's people in it, but it still seems kind of empty, and you can kind of do what you want in there. As evidenced by this scene.
Banging in a hospital bed has got to be like the most uncomfortable and B so noisy. You know those beds are just like "Wah, wah, 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 wah," and there's got to be other people in the same room or the room next to you, or just like it is ridiculous.
Yeah, when they pan across the rooms, I'm going to say it again, and Sean's going to tell me to shut up now about it. As they're going across the rooms, the first room is a little kid in a red sweater in that room.
We get this great creepy music in the background. We cut to a shot of Paul at the hospital staring menacingly at Greg, the neighbor, who's in Jay's hospital room, and they're holding hands. Paul is super jealous. Jay asks Greg, the neighbor, if he's seen it. He's seen nothing. He's been waiting 3 days. He doesn't think it's coming. Jay asks if he believes her, if he's not just playing along. He believes her but doesn't think it's following him. He says that's a good thing, though. Cut to Jay back home in her pool with the cast on her arm. She's staring out in the distance, waiting to see if something is approaching, but nothing does.
And Sean, I just want to back up for a second. There's a part between there where you see Greg eating and he's talking to like another girl. That girl looks a little bit like one of the ones that's following them. But I'm not 100% on that one. But
throughout most of this movie, this neighbor dude Greg is with like just different women in pretty much every single shot. He's like, if there's anybody to get rid of this thing quickly, it's probably this guy. We cut to Greg, the neighbor. He comes over to visit Jay. Her sister and friends are outside. They ask if he's seen anything. He says no. He asks to see Jay, but her sister says no. She won't come out of her room. She's hiding in there. Neighbor was hoping she'd be better. His sister says she'll have to call Jay. He'll have Jay call him later. They ask if he really hasn't seen anything. He says no, and Paul gets pissed. Well, she didn't make it up. Greg says, we'll see sooner or later, right? Paul tells him the chair broke in midair. Something knocked him over. The door didn't just break on its own. Greg says something happened, just not what she thinks happened. The kids ask, what do you think it was? And he laughs and walks away. We cut to Jay. It's late at night. She's dozing off, looking out her window. Sees someone walking down the street. They approach Greg's house and throw a brick through the window. Jay calls him in a panic, but he doesn't pick up. She runs out of her house across the street. She runs upstairs, and Greg's mom is knocking on his door nonstop. She stops and looks at Jay and then continues knocking. Jay screams for Greg not to open the door, but he does. What the fuck, Mom? And there she is, full titty out. She jumps and attacks Greg. Jay runs up to his room, and there's his mom, for all intents and purposes, basically fucking Greg to death, and he dies. Jay bails in her car. There's the same follower that threw the brick through Greg's window, who kind of looked like Greg, walking out of the house, chasing after Jay. She drives through the night as his creepy-ass music is playing in the background. She's in the middle of the woods in this dark, scary ass spot. She's laying on the hood of her car, and all you can hear are the bugs out in the night. Cut to the morning, and Jay wakes up on the hood of her car. How the hell do you sleep like that?
Yeah, I don't know. And also, like, I don't know, it can get you easier if you're outside the vehicle. Like, get inside the car. At least it has to break a window to get you. But I think maybe she's just collapsed from just, it's just enough already. Like, she can't take it anymore.
We cut in the morning. She wakes up on the hood of the car. She hears music off in the distance and walks to check it out. And there's 3 dudes in a boat partying out in the water. She starts taking off her clothes and begins walking out to the water. But then it cuts and she's driving back to the house and her hair is wet. Am I to assume that she banged those dudes and passed it on to them? But also, I don't think that happened because she references something soon that doesn't reference that happening. But like, what happens in this scene? She sees the dudes out on the water, she takes her clothes off, goes in the water, and the camera just cuts. I'm not really sure what the purpose of that is.
Yeah, I think it's meant to allude to her going out to them, but like, who knows? Maybe she had a thought and then changed her mind and just went in the water and then, decided against it. It doesn't really help her anyway, because if it's moving down the line, it's moved on to Greg. But if Greg is dead, then is it focusing on her? So then
Yes.
she definitely needs to move it on.
Yes.
Right. So, okay. So if it's going backwards that way, then it won't focus on her if, she gets involved there. But I don't know. I seem to think that she chickened out. I don't know. It's not in the movie at all, but I think that was a thought. You wake up and you whatever. And when I first saw it, I didn't even think of that. I thought she was just like, it was weird, like going into the water. I didn't know what I thought. I was like, I don't know, maybe she's washing up, but then she like takes her shirt off and stuff too. So I'm like, I don't understand.
No, I'm thinking like Paul. It's like she definitely went out and banged those dudes to pass on the followers to them. However, in this next moment, she kind of declares that she didn't. She's driving back to the house. Her hair is wet. Her friends are sitting out front. The pool has been drained. All the kids are asleep in the house. There's a knock on the door. It's Paul. She removes a chair from the blocking the door. She lets him in and puts the chair back to block the door. Jay tells him it's going to be here sooner or later. Paul tells her she can pass it on. She did once, so I'm guessing she didn't bang the boat dudes and that she just
Right, I
banged
guess
the
not.
neighbor.
But that pool, Sean, is not drained. Like the side of it is like bashed in. Like it's like they didn't drain it themselves. The side of the pool is bashed in, and it's weird too when they cut to the pool. They cut to them in the room, and there's like a sandwich there with like some chips or something next to it, and the center of the sandwich has like green dots on it.
Yeah, like mildew. It looked like mildew.
Yeah, like mold or something in the middle of the bread. I don't know if there's the same number of green dots as the green blades of grass that she put on her leg, but that's a weird one right there. Very weird.
She says she shouldn't have banged Greg the neighbor. Paul quickly volunteers himself, and she quickly says no. Poor Paul can't even get laid to die for it. Paul gets mad. I liked you. Why did you pick Greg? She thought Greg would be okay. He wasn't scared. She says they slept together in high school. It wasn't a big deal. Paul touches her hand. He tries to kiss her, but she moves away. He says he wants to help. She's like, "Do you?" Poor boy just wants to get laid so bad. He asks Jay if she trusts him. He asks if she remembers where they were the first time they kissed. Cut to all the kids driving off to the pool, recollecting on past times at the pool, drinking, throwing up, peeing in the pool as they're
Wait,
pulling
Sean.
off. Yep.
As they're pulling out with the car, there's a kid on a bicycle with a red hoodie on.
Not only that,
Going
she
down the
looks on the
street.
roof and there is a naked man watching her menacingly with creepy music in the background as well.
Yeah, that scene is really creepy. So we get the kid first on the bicycle with the red. So we've got that moment before something bad is going to happen. Then that is insane, that shot. And when they filmed it, they said they had to film that shot really fast. You can see why they had to film it really fast. They were filming in a regular neighborhood. So there's a lot of theories online that that's her father who passed away. That's on the roof.
The kids sneak into the pool. They booby trap the place with a bunch of electronics like Carl Weathers and Schwarzenegger and Predator. They plug everything in. They put it by the edge of the pool, and Jay gets into the water.
This is an absolutely ridiculous plan. This is just absurd. This very Scooby-Doo. They're gonna Shaggy and Scooby are gonna go over here, and we're gonna booby trap everything, and we're gonna do the whole electronics in the water deal with this. This is, nobody's watching these kids. They're doing whatever the heck they want. Now they got this plan. They were able to get into this place. They're able to do it. It's full of water. Like this is where we start to go off the rails a little bit with kind of the plotting of this film.
After a while, she says, "Oh my God, it walked in the room. It's right there." And the kids snap into action. They ask her to point at it because they can't see it. They ask her to describe it, but she says she's too afraid to. Now, this dude, I think, kind of looked like the dad who walks in and her sister says, "Can you describe it?" And she says she's too afraid to because she doesn't want to tell her that it's their dead dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's just
maybe
what I think.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think some people said it was this one, and some people said it was the guy on the roof, but yeah.
She says it's standing there just staring at her. Then it begins moving. She tells Paul she wants to get out. He tells her, wait for it to get in the water. And then one of the electronics flies through the air into the water. But luckily for Jay, somehow she doesn't get electrocuted. Everything starts getting thrown into the water. I am not really sure how or why or what their plan was or why it's not working or why she's not getting electrocuted. This part of the story confuses me.
Yeah, we didn't get an exposition dump in this film. So we get a little bit from Hugh, who kind of explains it, but they never explain why they would think this would work, like how you think you could kill it if no one else can see it. They also all jump into this plan immediately and are with her immediately when basically, your friend is just saying that something invisible is chasing them. Now, I know once it interacts with Paul and all of that happens, it ramps it up, but yeah, there's no point where they're trying to get help. They were able to get all these electronic devices. I don't know where they got all of these from so quickly. But I don't know what they were hoping to achieve, because if you can't see it,
And if the electronics are plugged in and getting thrown into the water and not electrocuting anybody, then what is it even doing and what's the purpose?
yeah, this is hokey. I think it's certainly meant to be hokey in a lot of ways, that this is, this would be a teenager. We assume they're teenagers plan to handle this on their own. None of them have any parental supervision at all. So they're just trying to figure it out.
We see the follower lifting everything, throwing it at Jay in the water. She gets hit in the head with a chair and starts bleeding. And this fucking dingus Paul goes and grabs the gun and he's screaming, "Jay, point at it." She is, but he can't see it. He's screaming, "Where is it?" And fires off a shot and pop, hits Yara right in the leg. What an idiot. Paul keeps yelling for Jay to point at it, and he fires again and seems to hit it because blood splatters on the wall. But the follower chucks an iron at Jay, and it clobbers her. Her sister grabs a blanket, throws it, and it covers the follower. Now Paul can see it. He aims at its head, fires, and it falls into the water. Jay tries to get out of the pool, but of course she's getting dragged back under by the follower. And this genius Paul begins firing shots off into the pool, zipping right past Jay's head, and eventually, luckily, pops the follower right in his head. It lets her go when she escapes the pool. She looks at her ankle, and the follower's fingerprints are wrapped around it. Paul asks if Jay can see it down there. She crawls to the edge of the pool, and we see the whole pool full of blood.
And those slash marks that are kind of on her ankle afterwards, and Paul has them on his midsection. I don't know. They kind of we had the blades of grass thing, and then we have these claw marks too. They could tie into each other a little bit.
This terribly eerie music crescendos and the camera cuts back to a locked room, chair in front of the door, and Paul and Jay are banging. The camera pans up to a window. We see it's pouring outside, and we get this eerie shot of the camera zooming out the window. And as the audience, you're looking to see if something is following, but I didn't see anything. Cut to them post-bang. He asks if she feels any different. She says, nope. Do you? He says, nope. Cut to Paul, cruising downtown, looking for some hookers so he can pass on the follower. Cut back to Yara in the hospital, recovering from her gun wound. She's still reading her story on her little shell iPad book. She's reading it back to Jay, and it's all about death and the moments of death before and after, and how death is certain. We see Jay staring at Paul as he's asleep in a chair.
And it says, so she's reading, I have the passage here. It's from the same novel, The Idiot. It says, but here I should imagine the most terrible part of the whole punishment is not the bodily pain at all, but the certain knowledge that in an hour, then in 10 minutes, then in a half a minute, then now, this very instant, your soul must quit your body, and then you will no longer be a man. And that is certain.
Creepy.
Mm-hmm.
We cut to Paul and Jay holding hands, walking down the street. I guess they're a couple now. How cute. However, walking behind them, we see something following. The camera cuts. It follows. The end.
And Shawn, right before it cuts, when they're following, there's a guy in a red flannel shirt raking leaves on the right-hand side. And that's our last one. So we see the red, then we see the entity or the follower. You called it the follower. I thought that was pretty cool. A lot of people online were calling it, referring to it as it. But yeah, so this movie is a lot more to unpack than I thought when we first decided to do it.
So I love the soundtrack. It's great. It's like the Stranger Things 80s, 70s, 80s soundtrack. It is a lot like Halloween. You kind of just replace lurking Michael Myers with lurking literally anybody. Anybody can be the killer. No one can see them but you. I thought that was a cool little twisty element to it.
Right. And so you want to know what I think of the movie?
Let's do it. What's the over under? Place the bets.
Then,
I want everybody get the bets in the bag. Put all your pens down. There's no betting after the buzzer. I want everybody to submit your entries in Madness Pod at inmadnesspod@gmail.com. We're going over under. I'm going to get myself some new shoes if I win this one. Daddy's got a lot of money riding on this. Vertebrae, what is the verdict on It Follows?
First viewing, let's take you on this ride. I put this movie on, or I start watching it, and I'm like, oh no, here we go. I can't text Shawn and tell him I'm not gonna watch this movie. I got to do it. So I go through the whole movie and I watch it. And I certainly get freaked out at a bunch of parts. Then I'm like, afterwards, it's kind of like sticking with me a little bit. So I'm like, okay, it's sticking with me. The soundtrack's in my head. I'm a little freaked out. And then I start to dive into it the next time watching it, and I'm picking up this red theme and the bodies of water and the whatever. So it's like a mixed bag, Shawn. So as a movie, like, I don't know when the next time is I'll watch it. It's certainly not in my top anything for favorite films, but I really, really enjoyed diving into this mythology and this world building that was going on a film that on the surface kind of didn't seem like that. There were some themes that they sort of beat you up over the head with in the beginning. You know, listen, this is the most annoying group of apathetic, pubescent kids that you could ever put on film. I don't know why anyone would follow them at all anywhere. Like, this entity has got to find somebody else. They're all just kind of annoying in their own way, and they all have this general like malaise to them, like this very just like we'll go here, we'll go there.
That's what Haddonfield kids are like.
Yeah, it's I'm not hanging out with any of these kids, that's for sure. But I love the fact that you can keep peeling layers of this onion back, and I'll probably read about this movie more, then I'll watch it again because there's so many little things, which may lead me to watching it again. Actually, I always say that, and then I end up watching him again. But I love the score. The score is really well done. I think it's beautifully shot. There's a bunch of online theories about this too. So one of the theories is that these kids are plucked from various decades and they're unknowingly living their lives in hell, which is a crazy theory.
Okay.
Right. So that's like that's almost like the snow globe and Krampus, you know. And another one is that it is just death that's chasing him. And in this theory, it said it is subdued or passed on by your desire to have sex and therefore procreate. It can be outrun, but it can't be beaten. It takes the form of something that can only be seen to that person and haunts them or those that has haunted before. So, you know, there's a bunch of different theories about that. It's funny, Quentin Tarantino had comments about the film. He really liked it, but he struggled with the mythology a little bit. And basically he was just saying that you establish rules for this movie and then you kind of do things in the rules like seconds later that don't make any sense for the rules that you established. So it's very off-putting in that way. They are making a sequel to this that's called They Follow. So I think it's in pre-production right now. So that'll be interesting to see where they go with it. Part of me, Shawn, wants to have that whole like, hey, this was a mythological creature that now takes this form, and maybe we get some more kind of like monster stuff. But man, you can't. No monster is going to replace that like 6'8" guy coming through the door.
That really got you, huh?
It did. It stuck with me.
Did you like back up into your couch? Like,
yeah, I was like, oh man, like because
it's she's there. I love it. She's there, and she's not taking up a lot of the frame of the picture. And behind her, I think the wall's red actually, and it's all dark. It's completely dark, and perfectly. Upon first viewing, you never see it. Out of this darkness comes this dude, and he just. There's no bracing for it. He just comes toward the camera. But upon viewing it again, you could see his outline like waiting there. And even as he's coming, it's still it's horrifying. It is, and he has to duck to get through the door because he's so tall. Like it is creepy.
And I will say, you know, Yara is probably the only one in the group I would hang out with, I think. And she's got that cool reader device, and she's well read, which is kind of cool. But yeah, the other ones are annoying, a lot, very annoying. But
Hugh, Greg,
yeah, but I don't know, like even that adds to the weirdness of this movie. And when I started to watch it again and was diving into little bits and rewinding and looking at stuff in the background, and there's a shot in one part of the movie where they're just like a little girl, like a ball goes into the road and she like runs out to get this ball, like this little yellow ball or whatever. And it's like, that's a random shot, but like it's placed there. It's not random. It's intentional. All of these shots are intentional. So I don't know if that helps. I don't know if it helps your bet at all. And
that basically was my bet that you love the soundtrack, didn't love the movie.
Yeah, but I do love all the gnarly bits, and I do love all of that kind of
the
weird
world building, and that's what I was saying this whole episode. Like, regardless of how you felt about it, I wasn't paying attention to the red thing. I didn't learn about this red thing until this last 2 hours we've been talking about this movie. Like you opened up these whole new worlds to me that will make me enjoy the movie, and hopefully you listening enjoy the movie even more the next 100 times you watch it.
And you know what I want to talk to David Robert Mitchell and find out more about this and what, and be an interesting conversation, because all of this is super well thought out, and you've got to give him a lot of credit for this film that he put together. He got to, you know, wear some of his influences on his sleeve with the Halloween stuff and Creature from Black Lagoon with the bodies of water that are involved. And there's probably more to it with the pool. And now the pool is empty. and we've got the lake, or I guess that's a lake, right? It seemed like a rocky beach. I don't know, lake, ocean, whatever. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if you know what time of year it is, what time of day it is, how many days does this take place over. It doesn't matter.
It was kind of like what's his face, Drayton's house in The Mist. When he
Hmm.
was on that corner with the water and the mountains and the mist
Yeah,
slowly coming in. Yeah.
yeah. But I want to know what people thought. Did they see this when it first came out? When did you see it, Shawn?
I definitely got it. It was on like a Netflix, deliver the CD to my house. It was back in the day, way back in the day, early Netflix days when I saw
Well,
this.
2015, so 9 years ago.
Oh, I guess. Was it 2015? Maybe it wasn't Netflix. Maybe it was. I honestly don't know. I definitely didn't see it in theaters. I
Right.
definitely didn't see it in theaters.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I really don't remember, but I'm stoked that this was your first time seeing this.
Yeah.
But we want to know what you thought about the movie. Was this your first time checking it out? Because we discussed it on the podcast, on the socials at In Madness Pod, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Hit us in the mail sack. We're not dipping it into in the next episode because I have special plans for us for the
Mm.
next episode. But we will dip into it soon because I recently opened it up and saw there are a ton of emails in there. We will be reading them on the show. Email us inmadnesspod@gmail.com. Talk about anything you want from any of our previous episodes or this episode. Check this podcast out on YouTube as well, In Madness Pod. Give us the 5-star reviews. Hit that like button. Follow the In Madness Spotify playlist. We'll definitely be adding music from the It Follows soundtrack to that. Spread the madness worldwide. Tell everybody you know about this show. And if you want to cop an In Madness shirt, brand new, they still smell fresh as a daisy, or like Vertebrae's dog, depending on how close the shirts are. Inmadness.com. If we got stickers, we'll throw some stickers in there. I got to give you some more Shawn the Butcher stickers to throw into some of those packages. But yes, thank you anyone who's already purchased. And if you want to add another cool shirt to your collection, we got 4 different ones to choose from. Inmadness.com. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad the verdict was pretty much what I had predicted it would be. I like putting you on to new worlds and new movies, and I think we'll get into something more well-known, hopefully within our next movie. But this is like a fan favorite. Like I said last time when I teased it, people are like, "Are you doing It Follows? I love that movie. Yeah, I love It Follows." So we got a really cool reaction on that I liked. Do you have anything else you want to hit, you want to plug before we tease what our next episode might be?
Oh, wow. We're going to do a tease. No, I don't. Just go to inmadness.com, buy shirts. I'm Vertebrae33 on all social media. Hit me up. Check out my artwork. I just recently did a poster for Perfect Circle, gig poster that'll be dropping soon. Got some more Star Wars art coming out on the Card Trader app, and got a Crow shirt that's going to be in Hot Topic the month of May. And that's about it. And write in, tell me why I should follow any of these kids anywhere, and tell me if you got a theory on this movie, because I didn't realize there were so many. There's a lot. I just mentioned a couple, but I found a ton of them on there, and it was really interesting to read them. So I just appreciate anyone who listens, anyone who buys a shirt, anyone who bought shirts. I've been throwing in a signed art book from me in each of them. So the ones that I had at Comic-Con, I've been putting those in with the shirt. So
Very cool.
thank you very much for listening. And Shawn, what do you got going on?
My plan is to get a new friend of mine on the show. If you're a kaiju nerd like myself, if you're a Godzilla fan like myself, we're going to have a very special guest on. I recently attended an event last year, Godzilla themed event in Brooklyn called Kaiju Brooklyn. I spoke to the founder of that. It's like a Godzilla Comic Con. The founder of that event was on our In Madness episode, I think 18.75, where we dominated New York Comic Con, doing interviews with everybody out there, even John Carpenter's wife. Thank you for giving this show credibility. But we also interviewed my man John, who hosts Kaiju Brooklyn. So my plan is to get him on for our next episode for 28.5 so we can talk about an event that's happening right after the episode drops when we do it. So that's my plan. That's my teaser. And then after that, we will cover our next movie. But it's going to be a whole lot of Godzilla talk if things go my way and we get him on for our next episode. That is the plan for now.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic.
Hell yeah.
Super excited. Thank
we'll
you.
See you next week for a brand new episode of In Madness Pod.